So let me just use a post I have already written on my blog, Tekidia. Okay. So when it comes to pricing, there are really two core methods organizations use for pricing. There is what they call cost plus markup, and there is what they call value-based pricing. The cost is basically you look at the cost of production, and then you put something on top of it. Maybe the product is costing you 20,000 Naira. You say, I'm going to put 10%, 20% on it. That is a very, very primitive industrial age business model, because pricing model, because it's not a good way of looking at costing your products or also driving pricing into the market. The best is value-based pricing, because businesses are engineered or launched into the market to fix frictions which customers have. In other words, your capacity to actually deliver value to those users is actually the essence of your business model. So it's not about how much it's costing you to produce that product that should determine how much people have to pay. Rather, it's actually modeling the value that you are creating for them. And that is a better. So value-based pricing means I have used 100 Naira to create this product, but the value it is delivering to customers is 20,000 Naira. This is not about the issue of morality, ethical. There is nothing unethical, provided you are making this thing self-evident that this customer knows what he or she is paying. So, of course, as you begin to capture that great margin because of the way you are pricing, you're going to see a lot of competitors coming in, because good margins, everyone wants to also go and attack the same opportunity. But how do you really build that model? It comes back to what we call marginal cost. The most important cost element in market system is the cost of serving an additional user in a business. The additional user of a business basically says that if you can serve that additional user in a business at a cheaper cost model to the ones that you're already serving on average, it means that you can actually scale or grow that business. And that is where we get what we call unit economics. So let me explain it this way. In industrial age business, this is how the cost of your marginal cost looks like. So as product output increases, in other words, you're making more stuff, the cost per unit of making each of those marginally will drop. So a company that is producing 1,000 phones, and all of a sudden that company is now producing 10,000. You realize that as the output increases, you are going to get what? The cost per unit of that product to drop. But remember, from moving from that 1,000, 10,000 to 1 million, there is going to be a point where instead of the cost per unit dropping, the cost per unit begins to go up because you have exceeded your marginal cost point. So what is this thing telling us? It's telling us that you cannot have engineering factories in every local government if you are running a business in Nigeria. You cannot have branches of a bank in every street in Nigeria, because the more branches you have, at the beginning, it can increase your ability to grow revenue, but over a time, it begins to actually become a diminishing return. Go back to your secondary school economics, you must have been exposed to the law of diminishing return, that if you add a variable factor into a fixed factor after a period of time, that you're going to see an increase in the total output. But once you pass a certain inflation point, even as you are adding the variable factor, the total output begins to drop. They always use fertilizer and land as an illustration in those textbooks in secondary school. So you have a piece of land, one plot, you put fertilizer, the output of yam or cassava or garri, whatever it takes, will grow up. But after a time, even as you're putting more fertilizer, the output of that farmland is not yielding much. So let's look at the digital companies. These are now companies like Nairaland, Facebook, Instagram. If you look at as output increases, their marginal cost efficiency does never deteriorate. What that means is that these businesses are built to scale unbounded by geography or unconstrained by any factor. In other words, adding 1,000 users will not cause you a problem. Adding 1 billion users will not cause you a problem, because there is an asymptote. You remember in mathematics, this curve is trying to touch, they never touch in the final space until they get to infinity. So that means if you are pricing a product which marginal cost is like this, you have a lot of freedom And that freedom is captured in what we call, let me show you this one here. Just sorry, trying to teach here, but just closing it here. So you see this. So the greatest reward for a digital business, for example, is when your marginal cost begins to go near zero, even as the number of users, your revenue is increasing. So your job is to make sure that your distribution and transaction costs, both of them stay low, even as you are growing users and growing revenue. If you can do this, you become like a baobab tree that will begin to take over a forest, because you can scale, build a rapidly growing business. In short, gentlemen and ladies, this is what we do in investing in all these startups. When they come with all those, their pitch deck, you analyze how efficient their marginal cost can enable them to grow. If you look at the marginal costs in a way that they cannot grow, you don't invest in them, because the business model you run determines how far you can go as a business than even the effort you are putting in that business. There are businesses in this world, if you bring the smartest men and women in the world to run, no matter how much effort they put, they will not be profitable. For example, I've written extensively in Harvard that don't waste your time in B2C e-commerce in Nigeria, because you're never going to be profitable. I wrote that piece in 2013. A lot of people are attacking, but I have looked at the cost model, though, that underpins the e-commerce sector in Nigeria, and I cannot see how anybody can make money in the B2C market. So costing is now mathematics, and you have to understand that equation very well, because it's not just a question of trying anything you want to try. You need to understand your business model so that you can position yourself in a place where you keep distribution costs low, put transaction costs low, even as users and revenue, and of course the fees cost is fairly marginal. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof, for really going deep in that cost analysis.